Okay, now we're gonna do some questions from the audience. If you have questions that you would like to ask, if there's something that you would like to know, or something that you would like to get my thoughts on, put it down in the comments or send me a message, send me a DM, slide in my DMs, and I'll do my best to get to the good ones. Same thing about reaction videos. If you have videos that you would like for me to react to, I would love to do that. And so one of the questions actually comes from someone that I know very, very well. My mother asks, "Will I ever have grandchildren?" So let's talk about family, legacy, and grandkids. You know, it's interesting. For the first time ever, last year in March, I got a dog for the first time. I had never had a pet before. I've had fish. See, but fish are easy, right? Because when you go on vacation, you can put the auto feeder on and it can feed your fish for like a month, right? Anybody who knows me personally or in real life knows that every year I like to go to Puerto Rico for at least a month. In 2022, I went for 10 weeks. I almost didn't come back. But while I was away, my fish lived, and it was because of the Amazon auto feeder. Uh, the dog, his name was Dolce, standard poodle, beautiful dog, but a dog is like people say it's like having a child, and if that's anything like it, wow, right? So anytime that I would have to travel for work or for leisure, there was this whole process of like finding the boarding place. Will the are they available this who's going to pick them up, who's going to drop them off? And so my mother's question, will I have grandchildren? No time soon, right? So let me explain it to you. My mother is one of six, and so of her siblings, um with a couple of exceptions. Oh, this is getting spicy, but I'm gonna say it anyway, right? With a couple of exceptions, none of them are situations that I would exchange places with. Okay, hey, and in fact, and I won't even say with a couple of exceptions, none of my cousins, none of my first cousins, so none of her siblings' children, whether that have children, some of them, a couple of them are married, but a lot of them were not, right? A lot of baby showers with just the mother, and that's not where it is, right? I know I have a lot of friends who, oh, and y'all know what I'm talking about, right? We're gonna keep this open and honest, right? We're gonna have this conversation. I have a lot of friends who were on their way, and then they got a phone call, or they found out themselves that their friend didn't show up for the month. And so what that meant was, with that new responsibility, you don't get to move to Seattle when you want to. With that new responsibility, you don't get to start a Turo fleet. I've always said that if I were to have children, I would not want one of the, because there is no instruction manual from what I hear, but there will be as much structure as possible. And I think as a community, and I'm talking specifically to people who look like me, I think that is a very deep conversation that needs to happen. We have a lot of people who are bringing children into the world who shouldn't have a dog, if we're being honest. Um, if you do not have money, $1,000 for an emergency, you should not have a child. Okay? It is what it is. If you do not know your potential baby's mother or your potential baby's father enough, you should not have a child. And I think those are the questions that should be asked, right? Will there be more than one parent at the baby shower? Is the baby shower going to be the essential startup kit for you to go on this latest adventure? Is this a cute accessory for you to carry around? Those are the questions. And I think a lot of people don't ask those questions. And that's why we end up in situations where, you know, you look at the public school system and you wonder why it's hard for us to have passing schools. Well, if the children have to go home to chaos because there was no intention about setting them up for success, there's only so much that a teacher can do. We'll just call it what it is. Because if there's no, not only financial stability, but emotional stability, spiritual stability, mental health, those are the questions that need to be asked. And I'm pretty sure, if there are any other people out there that want grandkids out there, ask yourself this: do you want it that way? Yeah, I said it. Do you want it in a situation where, as a grandparent, not because you want to, but because you have to, you're taking care of this grandchild? Or you're stepping in for this grandchild? Is the grandchild want from a selfish position rather than an intentional one? So, mom, to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know. If I were a female, I know there's a biological clock. As far as I know, um, I mean, I can, biologically, it can happen. I'm not on a time limit, but no time soon. Why would I trade this? Why would I trade? Listen, you know what? This was a question of my late Aunt Lisa. My Aunt Lisa, she's one of my aunts that have passed away. This had to be probably almost 10 years ago. It was one of the last times we sat down. I did a bootleg version of this podcast. There were no two cameras. There weren't two cameras then. There was just me and it was audio. And my Aunt Lisa asked the same question. She was like, and I guess it's because, like, if you really look at it, like their generation, 18, 19, 20, they were knocked up. But you know what happens when you're 18, 19, 20 knocked up? You don't get to move to Seattle. You don't get to do a lot of stuff. You don't get to go to Puerto Rico for a month, right? You don't get to do those things. And so I wonder if my mom remembers the answer that I gave her. I got up and I walked over to my freezer and I pulled out a container of Snickers ice cream and I sat it on the coffee table. And then I went over to my counter and I got a bottle of Bailey's cream liqueur. And I said, last night I was craving some Snickers ice cream at 2 a.m. to mix with this Bailey's cream liqueur because I was on Instagram and I saw I don't think TikTok was out in like 2018, 17. It wasn't. So it had to be Instagram. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And because I didn't have those same barriers, if you will, I got up. I had valet bring my car around, and I went to Walmart at 2 a.m. to get some Snickers ice cream. And while I was there, I ran into one of my classmates from high school. She had like 5 kids. And I thought to myself, damn, it is 2 a.m. Why are they in here? Right? And we connected and shot the stuff, and then I took my ice cream back home, and I had my Bailey's liqueur with Snickers ice cream. So there's your answer. Comment below. Tell me if you like what I said, if you agree, if you are one of those cousins who, have to kind of, or if you too are thinking more strategically. Put it in the comments, put it in the likes. Tell me what you think. Ooh, this is getting spicy now.